It feels a bit odd talking about tourism-focused real estate in the Philippines when tourists can't even travel to the country. That being said, this sector could really play an important role in supporting a Philippine property market recovery looking ahead. Philippine Department of Tourism data showed there were 8.26 million foreign arrivals in 2019. That was actually a 15% increase on the previous year. That number is dwarfed by the country's regional peers, however. In 2019, Indonesia recorded roughly 16 million international arrivals. Malaysia had more than 26 million tourist arrivals. Vietnam received an estimated 19 million visitors, and Thailand surpassed the 40 million mark. So, what gives? It certainly has nothing to do with a lack of interesting destinations in the Philippines. Tourists who visit the country always praise its warm hospitality, its wonderful sights, and the beautiful scenery. Arrival numbers elsewhere in Southeast Asia are buoyed by the fact that it's an interconnected region. That's something that's just not possible in the Philippines. But this isn't really a huge issue when we look at it from a real estate investment perspective. Apart from some regional demand from Singapore, most overseas interest in tourism-focused real estate would come from traditionally strong overseas markets. We're thinking about the United States, Europe, the Middle East, China, Hong Kong, South Korea, and so on. An additional 60 million domestic trips are made locally each year as well. And that means there is a large base of strong international and domestic demand for tourism-focused real estate once the situation in the country returns to normal. Being ready to tap into this market and deliver tourism-focused real estate products is going to be vital. Ultimately, it could be the catalyst for a property market rebound in the country. Of course, that's much easier said than done. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, tourism accounted for more than 12.7% of the country's GDP in 2019. This is up a total of 5.6% since the year 2000. Now, both the government and private sector have played an important role in the growth of tourism. The PSA found that private investment rose by an average of 19.3% annually between 2010 and 2019. Government investment in tourism infrastructure and related fields between 2012 and 2019 has increased by 4.6%. Ultimately, more work is needed to make the Philippines a viable destination for tourist-focused real estate investors. Apart from improving infrastructure, developers also need to be in tune with the demand local buyers and international ones have when it comes to tourism-focused real estate. Now, there are a few companies getting it right already in the Philippines, and we will get to those in a bit, but it's really important that home builders in the country understand who they're building for and what types of projects they are launching. Developers in the Philippines don't have to look far when it comes to tourism-focused real estate projects because there are a lot of great examples already in Southeast Asia. Bali obviously has been attracting overseas investment in tourism-focused real estate for decades now, despite Indonesia's complex ownership laws. Having first mover advantage has definitely helped Bali. Today, both real estate agents and developers understand the needs of those looking for tourism-focused real estate projects in that tropical paradise. In Thailand, the rise of the condotel has been massive for the country's real estate market. If you're unfamiliar with the condotel concept, it's actually quite simple. The project is built and sold like a condominium, however, the entire project is managed like a hotel. So while an owner does have an official unit they own, revenues are shared and everything is pooled together. The main difference between condotels that we're seeing in the Philippines today and what's happening in Thailand comes down to management. Thai home builders are partnering with well-known 4- and 5-star hotel brands to manage their condotels. These are much more attractive to buyers since they're already familiar with the brand and they feel confident in investing with it. In the Philippines, you're seeing developers try to manage and operate the condotels themselves, which is less desirable in the eyes of overseas investors or investors in general, if we're being totally honest. Tourism-focused real estate in Vietnam has also picked up significantly over the past few years. That's in spite of the fact that foreign investors aren't allowed to purchase these properties whatsoever. Demand in Vietnam has been totally and completely domestic driven. Developers in Vietnam have taken advantage of the country's rapidly growing tourism sector. Similar to Thailand, most projects in the country are condotels or other properties that provide on-site management for investors. If tourism-focused real estate in the Philippines is going to grow, developers really need to understand what property seekers are after. First, investors want a hands-free investment where they simply buy the unit and then everything else is taken care of for them. Secondly, they want to have that option to stay at the property or the resort in the case of tourism-focused real estate. That means that they get their set number of days they can use at the property each year, and then the rest of the time it's rented out for investment purposes. It's really important that Philippine developers do understand that if they are to get into the tourism-focused real estate market. While there hasn't been a lot of activity when it comes to tourism-focused real estate in the Philippines, we have seen some developers jump into the market. In Cebu, Grandland has really been a first mover here, and the results have been quite good. The Grand Tower, a mixed-use project containing the Dusit Princess Cebu, was one of the region's first condotels targeting user investors. The project will be operated as a hotel with unit owners sharing net room revenue. Additionally, they are entitled to stay at the property 15 days each year. Dusit Princess Cebu has proven to be popular among both local and international investors, and the project was quick to sell out. Construction is ongoing, and it remains on schedule to be completed. The Chancellor Hotel from a MegaWorld subsidiary is another good example of how some developers are tapping into tourism-focused real estate. Located in Boracay, this condotel is perhaps the most ambitious project in the sector to date. It allows property buyers a chance to invest in one of the Philippines' most popular tourist destinations and have that resort property they can also call a holiday home. It's important not to get carried away about what type of impact tourism-focused real estate in the Philippines can have. It will certainly help a property market recovery, but it is only one part of a larger equation. Ultimately, the sector serves as a key link between the property and tourism sectors. Tourism-focused real estate in the Philippines won't single-handedly turn things around. However, it could really help the property market reach new heights once the current situation has passed. Developers may think demand isn't there or want to focus elsewhere, but this seems like a miscalculation on their part. Overseas buyers are already active in places like Cebu, and there are many more on the sidelines waiting for better tourism-focused projects to be launched. There is likely to be greater demand for tourism-focused real estate from both domestic buyers and OFWs. That's because it ticks a lot of boxes in terms of what they're looking for. The potential for returns is good, there's no need to worry about management, and it doubles as a holiday property. In many cases, what more could an OFW ask for if they're not investing in, say, a property for their family? Because right now you're seeing many buy Metro Manila condominium units and then forced to rent them out themselves, which isn't always the most ideal situation. That being said, it is necessary to mention the risk which we're living through now. Another global pandemic would seriously dampen the prospects for tourism-focused real estate in the Philippines. Both developers and investors need to be keenly aware of that. However, if you look at some of Southeast Asia's other tourism destinations, you will see that the sector itself is actually quite resilient. In many cases, property prices in places like Phuket and Bali tend to recover faster than more urban locations. At the very least, it won't hurt the property sector to consider tourism-focused real estate moving forward. It can really be a nice complementary piece supporting a thriving, growing market in the Philippines. It's also something that I think many property buyers are really keen on getting into because, as we all know, the Philippines is a beautiful country, it's a great place to visit, and there's really a lot of potential there being untapped. That does it for my look at tourism-focused real estate in the Philippines. For Interesting Asia, I'm Cheyenne Hollis, and make sure you keep it interesting.